At the luxurious Casablanca Hotel in the West End of Philadelphia, the lights had long since gone up when Hanako had finished carefully reviewing the sixth letter and, glancing at the secretary who was working tirelessly, said,
"Reprint the sixth letter without changes, except for the title. Put Riccardo Morandi's notes in brackets, and write Eric Salvatore on top. This is his real name."
Ari in an elegant light dress entered the room, treading silently on the carpet.
"Did you come back?"
"Not for long. I'm just going to change clothes."
"Look over here."
Hanako handed her a few pages from the letter he had just read.
Yes. Turns out she could have eliminated Salvatore twice and failed twice. Her betrayal is now confirmed. But there are some details. However, there is no hint of the reason yet. Where is she? Love? Nonsense.
And what is known about Mr. Cornett?
Disappeared, but you have to find it. There may be something hidden behind it. I think he will not run away from us.
Hanako lit a cigarette and delved into reading another sheet, already marked with the number 7.
Letter 7. Guildsburg, April 24th, 1961.
Dear Ellie, I am still confused by your letter. Did you do this with him? True, I know about it from Katie's stories, but until now I did not take it to heart. All this was somewhere there, with someone and only theoretically. And you are here. I don't even believe it. Although all this is very interesting. To say nothing of your letter, of course I asked Katie about it today. She said that yes, there are girls who enjoy it, and she knew such in Japan, in the house where she lived. Some feel both pleasure and pain, others no pain, only pleasure. And some reach ecstasy only in this way. But they rarely happen. Kate herself did not fully feel him and has no special sympathy for him. I also did not notice such a tendency in myself. But it never occurred to me that Will or Nick or anyone else would take me from behind. What a shame. However, it is very, how to say, piquant, and there is something in it, sharpness. But it seems to me that I would not get much pleasure. In any case, I was very surprised to learn that you and Dick decided to do it, and with bitter pleasure, as you say. Dear Ellie, I don't know what to say. But you write, as always, describe everything in detail. How do you lie at the same time, on your back, on your stomach, on your side? Write without omitting anything. Maybe something like that will happen to me, who knows? I'll be keeping a closer eye on Nick now, and will as well when he arrives. By the way, Nick promised to visit me soon and asks if I have changed my mind about becoming his wife. He writes that he is negotiating with his parents about the wedding. I would rather. Will has already asked me. I made his fingers wet a couple of times. Once, standing under a tree, and then right in our corridor, in one of the dark corners. And it seems to have been more severe than with Katie. Simply amazing. Somehow he is very gentle. And he is persistent, to the point of stubbornness. He knows a lot, understands a lot. True, we never speak with him, but always do it silently. The first time he and I stood in the garden, he kissed me for a long time and, firmly grasping my hand, pressed it to his stomach. Do you understand? I really didn't know what to do. Of course I tried to pull my hand away, but he's so persistent. So stubborn. And much stronger than me. In the end, I pretended to forget about my hand. And here, how would you say? Without taking his lips from mine, Will took my hand by the wrist and slowly began to guide it below his stomach. That's when I felt what he has. But I did not pull out my hand and even froze. Let it be, what will be. And he guided and guided my fingers around the torch. And I was getting more and more pleasant, and I could hardly hold back. I didn't push Will away. I could feel him shaking all over, and his breathing became somehow fast and jerky. He pressed me harder and harder against the tree, then boldly lifted my dress, and I was already standing with my stomach slightly sticking out. I admit, I was very pleased. I was just crazy, and it seemed to me that he and I had the most pleasant, most interesting start. He suddenly trembled somehow, pressed his whole body to me, and that's all. After that, we became somewhat lethargic, completely exhausted, as if we had spent a long stormy night in bed. Of course, this is just the beginning. All the best is ahead of us. But no matter what, he and I are almost close, almost relatives. I will write to you about what awaits us. Necessarily. Katie knows about Will and I's friendship, but the fact that I allowed myself more, she probably has no idea. So be it. This will be a wonderful surprise for her.
Notes by Ricardo Morandi. Zombie Song.
Insidious fate. My fatal mistakes. I don't know. It is necessary to understand everything well. I will write it down and then think about everything in turn. So what's the point? Zombie Song. Yes, somewhere in it lies the whole tragedy. But everything is in order. So, after the fight in the mysterious mansion on the southern outskirts of Naples, more than a month has passed. A month and 2 weeks to be exact. I'm in Tokyo. The traces of my business led me here. Time seems to have not passed in vain. I managed to understand something, I found something. Tokyo still bore traces of post-war devastation. As a matter of fact, the capital of Japan was not particularly damaged. Temples, imperial palaces, ancient pagodas remained intact. The city was impressive not so much by its size, but by a kind of Eastern chaos. It was easy to get lost here, but it was even easier to find shelter, go underground, become a nobody. And what could be more desirable for a foreign agent? Many foreigners, especially the American military, created an additional convenience for those who did not want to catch the eye of the guards. Yes, all the tracks I discovered led to this city, led to a modest, unremarkable office. If I had to start the search over, I still wouldn't have passed this suspicious establishment. On one of the quiet, narrow streets of Tokyo, not far from the center, there is an inconspicuous-looking 4-story building. Inscriptions in Japanese and English indicate that there is an office recruiting workers in South American countries. Sometimes there is an unusual excitement around the house and in the house itself. Cars drive up here. Men and women crowd the sidewalks in front of the main entrance. Numerous couriers rush by. But sometimes the house seems to freeze and it becomes dark in its tall windows. On such days, no one bothers the solid, huge growth of the Japanese Swiss, who announces with a polite smile that the office is temporarily closed. No one has ever seen the owner of the office. There were bad rumors among the population. It was said that many people who were going on a trip across the ocean disappeared in this house, but never reached their destination. Political leaders of disagreeable governments, progressive artists, journalists, seekers of truth were invited to the office to disappear forever. The police tried to enter there, but, apart from a few employees and criminals who also worked as employees, nothing suspicious was found here. And then some influential minister discouraged the policemen from looking closely at the house. Interest in it faded away. But apparently some still did not leave him without attention, including me. Of course, I acted very cautiously, asked, clarified, and, in the end, after all kinds of tricks, I established contact with one of the employees of the registrar. That evening, my meeting with this same employee from the office was to take place. I thought everything through carefully, got ready, and went to meet him for the first time at the cafe suggested to me. This cafe, in my opinion, was no different from other similar establishments. Visitors were attracted there by a small orchestra, a set of vulgar pop numbers, and the obligatory striptease. Although Japan's relatively high social morality resisted the introduction of vulgarity, the semi-basement entertainment business flourished. Together with my companion, we took a table located near the stage, covered by a wooden panel with a dragon painted on it. It was a comfortable and somewhat safe place. Sitting here, you could follow what was happening in the hall and on the stage. In addition, when entering the restaurant, I tried to fix with my eyes the possible exit routes, looked closely at the service personnel, and made a conclusion in case the situation became threatening. It was not without pleasure that I noticed the admiring glances of the men, who regarded my companion with interest as we passed through the hall. She was wearing a bright red dress with a plunging neckline. The dress barely covered her breasts. She threw a black fur cape over the back of a nearby chair. A young Japanese man in a white suit ran up to us and froze waiting for our order. After consulting with me, my companion ordered a cocktail and fruit. After hearing the purest Japanese speech of my European, the Japanese bowed low and disappeared. It seems that at that moment I noticed a slight movement of the curtain that separated our table from the central part of the hall. It even seemed to me that someone approached her from the other side. I did not pay special attention to it. My mistake. So, a lively conversation began between us, which is occasionally interrupted by the arrival of a Japanese waiter. The interlocutor expressed doubts about his coming to meet with me. I reassured her by telling her that in addition to the already known incriminating material, I managed to obtain some new ones related to this man's criminal past. Expressing her fear that we might fall into a trap under the guise of a date, she asked what his name was. I mentioned the name, although I immediately regretted it because I remembered my recent doubts and generally felt the threatening uncertainty of the situation. I firmly asked, "Does she know him?" She answered that no. She doesn't know that his name doesn't mean anything to her, and immediately smiled somehow unnaturally, which was very similar to hidden irony. She was clearly playing a game with me, and I felt helpless in that game. I believed her and did not believe her, admired her and hated her. Gradually, from my powerlessness to solve it, I began to lose self-control. Anger flared in me, mixed with a sense of impending danger. This aggressiveness completely deprived me of control over myself, and when she showed a desire to break up with me or, in the extreme case, to meet only occasionally, I could not stand it, grabbed her by the shoulders and almost slapped her.
Stupid. You better kiss me. You want to kiss me, right?
I really suddenly felt an irresistible urge to kiss her lips. We hugged and froze like that.
No woman will be able to kiss you like I can.
At that time, the show started on the stage and we took our cocktails and started watching the stage.
At this point, Hanako stopped reading the letter and thought for a while. He glanced at the typist. "Give me the folder. Sakura 34. In a minute, the secretary came in and put a blue folder with the indicated name on the table in front of the boss.
In this 7th letter, make a certain substitution.
Okay.
Replace the recording of this conversation in the letter with the recording of this conversation made by my agent Amito. She is, without a doubt, fuller. We will leave the original unchanged, but I need an exact copy.
It will be done.
Now I will give them to you. I'll just watch it again.
Hanako opened the folder, found the right page from the agent's reports, and began reading Amito's notes.